Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to wait a little bit while we see participants filing in. Numbers are still moving a little bit. All righty, starting to slow down this a little bit, but I know a few of you are still joining with us and connecting to your audio, so thank you. But good afternoon and welcome to the August 31st TEA LEA Special Education Webinar. We've got lots of information to share with you around grants today. Just as a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be posted to the TEA website. We also have an opportunity for you all to submit questions should you need to. And at the end of the webinar, those questions will be sent to the panelists that we have here today. So thank you. We are on the agenda today. We're going to be reviewing some questions that were submitted to TEA around the Child Find and Early to Exit IEP Support Grant, the Special Education Specialized Support Grant, the Legal Framework Grant, and the SPED Capacity Grant is on hold, correct, Kim?
Yeah, I have a screen about that.
A screen about that. Okay, yeah. So perfect. We have Kim Brannon joining us today, the Director of Special Education Technical Assistance. We have Mandy Young, Special Education Technical Assistance Manager, and then Susan Bynum, State Performance Plan and Reporting Manager. And my name is Anna Mondragon, and my sidekick today is Derek. So Kim, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to everyone who was able to make it today. Let me share my screen. All right, hold on. Let me get one thing set up before I start. Okay. All right. So again, as Anna said, we're going to do the request. We're going to talk about the request for competitive letters of interest today, give you an overview of the authority and vision for these 4 grants. We'll talk about each of the grants specifically. And then we will go over the LOI materials and the processes and scoring and the questions and answers. All right, authority and vision. So the Child Find and Early to Exit IEP supports, the SPED Specialized Support Grant, the SPED Capacity Grant, and the Legal Framework Grant. All of those are allowed through funds, the IDEA-B funds. Those funds were set aside specifically for these initiatives. Our vision, meaning the Office of Special Populations and Monitoring, our vision is together we are committed to high expectations and strong systems that achieve equitable outcomes for students in special populations. You'll find this in all the work that our office does, including in these grants. The grant period for all of these runs from July 8th of 24 through August 31st of 25. All right, for the SPED Capacity Grant, this LOI opportunity is no longer available and has been removed. I think it was removed yesterday. The SPED Capacity Grant was originally designed in anticipation of legislative support around capacity and to bring all capacity work into one grant opportunity. Given capacity as part of special session, the good standing of the current ESCs doing this work, and the impact to the field and stakeholders, namely students who are already in the programs that covered in this grant, the decision has been made to continue the respective ESC 10 and ESC 15 grants and not break them up into, combine them into a new grant. All right, I'll hand it over to Mandy for Child Find and Early to Exit IEP supports.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Okay, so Child Find and Early to Exit IEP Supports Grant. So the purpose of this grant is to support the dissemination and implementation of resources and professional development. And then this is over several different areas, including Child Find, transition, ARD processes, and IEP development. You can go to the next slide.
All right.
So another purpose is the grant's also going to support the implementation of the resources, and they're going to scale their usage to our intended audiences. So intended audience, which is primarily those LEA administrators, educators, support staff. So of course, our ultimate goal of implementing these resources is to improve those SPED practices and outcomes for students with disabilities. And the grant awardee will be supported by ESC representatives across all 20 regions. So you can go to the next slide, Kim.
Oh, I did. Can you see it?
Oh, okay. Yes, now I can. Sorry. Okay, so the description of this Child Find and Early to Exit IEP Supports Grant, they're basically two buckets of activities. There's compliance piece and a best practice piece. And we want to build the capacity of educators by providing technical assistance to LEAs and ESCs. We also want to have training and follow-up support and maintain those resources that are being created. And then also we want to develop resources and facilitate those resources in those online existing courses that we already have. So another goal for the grant is outreach and scaling. So of course, this would mean meeting with ESC representatives, helping with conferences, and then any type of stakeholder engagement that we would need.
All right, thanks, Mandy. Now I'm going to go over the particulars for the Special Ed Specialized Support Grant. So very similar to the Child Find Grant, the purpose of this program is to support dissemination and implementation of our existing technical assistance resources. But this time, this grant will oversee resources for students who have significant cognitive disabilities or complex access needs, students who are deaf or hard of hearing, deafblind, and visually impaired, and then assistive technology is another piece of work in this grant. And we already have a robust ecosystem of technical assistance from our current grants that we've built. And this grant's going to support their existence and maintaining them, as well as most importantly, the implementation of all those resources. The audience is very similar to the last one. All of our resources are designed with particular audiences in mind. LEA educators, we have things for administrators and support staff like related service providers, as paraprofessionals, etc. And then again, this grant will also be supported in their work through ESC representatives from all 20 regions. The activities are very similar to the Child Find one, providing technical assistance to LEAs and ESCs, but for those populations that I outlined previously. Oversee the training and follow-up support, maintaining our existing suite of resources, developing some training and resources, potentially facilitating existing online courses, and one new one for this one is managing pass-through funds. Outreach is also a goal of this. And again, we'll be helping with the meetings with the ESC reps, helping with communities of practice, PLCs, conferences, and ensuring stakeholder engagement is applied where appropriate. Now, we did post an errata. There was one activity, one major work stream, and we posted an errata yesterday. It was unintentionally left off, and it's the Regional Day School Program for the Deaf, the peer review process for the RDSPDs. And so you'll see on the posted errata on page 6, I've highlighted what's changed, adding the qualifications and experience of key staff, someone knowledgeable about Regional Day School Programs for the Deaf. On page 7, about the budget, the applicant will have to outline the allocated funds to organize, update, and coordinate reviews for RDSPDs with a team from the grantee. That would include minimally one representative from the grantee, an RDSPD supervisor, and a TEA rep. And we've also included the current budget that we have for that peer review process. Page 10 also adds an additional bullet of grant staff knowledgeable or have an experience with RDSPDs. And then for applicants, you just need to know to include within your application how you would implement and support the RDSPD peer review process. All right, I'll hand it off to Susan for legal framework. Is she still on there? I don't see her in mine, but I'm sharing.
Oh, you're muted, Susan.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry.
Trying to unmute, sorry. The purpose of the project is to provide and maintain an updated web-based platform to assist stakeholders such as LEAs, advocates, parents, in learning about state and federal laws and regulations by providing rich resources regarding obligations and rights for the provision of a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment to students with disabilities. So really, this is a resource, and it gets updated every 2 years, every time we go to lead session or anytime anything changes. So it's a living resource also. It has been specifically designed to maintain a system of support and web page layout design updates for the web-based Texas Legal Framework website, including hosting of local virtual servers, the application, and an authoring system, which allows for linking or uploading LEA's board policies and special education operating procedures. Examples of the types of activities that will be supported by this grant are many, but here are a few. Maintain the legal framework website, provide support to LEAs when they're submitting those assurance statements, plan, develop, and implement training around the assurance statements and utilizing the website, review, revise, and update specific resources. And you'll find a comprehensive list of activities in the legal framework grant application. And I'll hand it back again.
Okay. All right. For the LOI review materials, of course, you have your program guidelines. This describes your processes, timelines, requirements, scoring. Please read over that in detail because that is very specific to each of these grants and what's involved. And then when you submit your applications, you would submit application part 1, which details the statutory program assurances on how you would implement the grant, and application part 2, which is the breakdown of the budget. So it is recommended that you fill out the intent to apply survey by September 8th. Please note this is optional. You do not have to do it. All this does is help us get an idea of how many applicants we are so that we can organize our own staff for the LOI review period. All right, Mandy, process and scoring.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kim. Okay, so the process of the LOIs, of course, it started with us publishing the applications and all the supporting documents that Kim just reviewed. So now we're waiting for the applicants to submit the LOI applications and attachments. This is by October 2nd. Then the applications will be reviewed and scored, and we may have some oral interviews or other questions that the highest applicants may need to answer if there's a tie or we need clarification. Then we're going to announce the applicants selected for funding. This is on December 1st, and it'll be on the TEA grants awarded data webpage. So those awarded will not need to submit a separate grant application or anything like that. TEA is going to conduct budget negotiations on the LOI application, and then lastly we'll do a notice of grant award that will be issued after that successful negotiation process. So here's some tips for applying when you're applying for LOI. So of course, when you apply for an LOI, you want to review the program guidelines carefully and in detail. And that's what Kim was talking about, that the program guidelines are very important. Please read through those. That LOI application is due by 11:59 p.m. on October 2nd. To that address in the slide, the LOI application at tea.texas.gov. So please ensure that you meet the listed requirements for that specific expertise and be as specific as possible in that application. For example, I think Kim just brought up the
RDSPDs.
Yes, thank you. Like you would need to have someone who knows that process and is very intimately knows that process. So, please ask us any questions that you might have. Until September 15th, you have options to submit questions. So if you have questions prior to September 15th while you're completing this application, please email sped@tea.texas.gov with that subject line, FAQ, name of the grant name. So who do you contact after September 15th? So before September 15th, send it to SPED. But after September 15th, the slide is for child find and early to exit IEP supports. That's me, Mandy Young. The SPED specialized supports in specialized SPED supports grant is also me and Jerry Plicata. For legal framework, you're going to reach out to Susan Bynum. And just a reminder, prior to September 15th, just send it to the sped@tea.texas.gov box with that subject line. And then we will post these questions that we receive prior to September 15th and an FAQ to the TEA General Opportunities page. And that'll be on September 22nd that we post
Yeah,
that.
and we'll make sure that the questions in this webinar are in that FAQ, along with the questions we receive that Anna sends to us from this from your chats. And then we will also, anything new that comes in, we'll add it all to those FAQs.
Okay. Okay, and then the LOI scoring, we will have a panel of TEA staff that use the rubrics that are listed in the program guidelines, in each of the program guidelines. And the applicant with the most points is awarded the grant. So every application is reviewed to determine implementation skills for that grant. And when we are reviewing the information, the panel is going to consider the rating depending on the grant and program guidelines. So again, please review those program guidelines. And if you've seen the rubrics in the LOI, you'll know that each indicator has values of points, and the review that the panelists have, they're going to select that rating based on that rubric. So what does the scoring look like for each grant? Well, this slide shows each criteria and the maximum points available in each area. Again, this is just a snippet of the rubric. It just shows you the point systems and how they're broken down. In the program guidelines, you can see the entire rubric for each grant and how each criteria is broken down into point groups based on the applicant's answers. And the criteria for each grant is very similar with differences in the legal framework. You can see legal framework grant includes a plan for training, resource management, website management, instead of the other ones, which have the summary of training and coaching. That's on the child find early to exit and SPED specialized supports one. So there you have it. That's the LOI scoring. Let me hand it back.
Susan, did you have, I saw you come off mute for a second. Did you have anything to add? Okay.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. All right, let's get into the questions that we've received. There's not that many, so this shouldn't take too long. This was a global question. There was no LOI indicated for this one. Will the grant be awarded to a specific entity for 1 year only, or is there an expectation to last for 5 years with the same organization? The grants are for 1 year, and TEA reserves the right to continue that grant, which it would be a non-competitive grant at that point, recompete the grant through a competitive process, or sunset the grant at our discretion. All right, for SPED specialized support, is the $2 million budget negotiable? If the proposed budget stays at $2 million, can reducing flow-through funds, those were those pass-through funds I talked about earlier, reducing flow-through funds to ensure enough funding for other critical services be considered? No. And the reason why is this is a competitive grant process. So all applicants are beholden to the same funding maximum amount and should submit their applications outlining their plan accordingly. This one was also for SPED, specialized supports. Page 7 mentions creating resources and training based on needs assessment activities. Who creates the needs assessment? Will this be one needs assessment for all stakeholders, or a compilation of different assessments based on different areas of specialization? So I'll summarize that long answer there. Is the needs assessment process is an internal process that the technical assistance team at TEA, my team, goes through every about January to February. We gather data from a variety of sources, surveys, feedback, phone calls. We also get a lot of data, complaints, the monitoring data. We get data from our SPED liaisons across the state and our ESC SPED directors. So we gather data from a variety of sources of what are the needs that you're seeing in your particular area. And our team uses that information to then find some common themes and determine whether we have gaps in our resources and we need to develop something, or we have resources that solve for the problem, but no one's using them. So we need to work on targeted outreach. So that's how we design for each consecutive grant year. That's how we design the activities that will be required in future grant years, basically, and our own internal work as well. All right, another question for SPED, specialized support. Is the recipient of this grant expected to provide a level of AT support, technical assistance, comparable to what the complete AT network provided in the past? So for this grant, the SPED specialized support, the AT piece of that will include the continuation of the ATIA subscription. That's a state subscription. We pay for it, and it's available for all Texas educators for free, a variety of AT resources. So continuing that partnership, quarterly meetings with the AT ESC reps, supporting the maintenance of the AT tool, which is being built this year, collaborating with other TEA grantees. If there is an AT need, then that person this grant would be collaborating with them. And then maybe some resource development if we identify a need through our needs assessment process. SPED specialized support, another question. Are there any limitations or restrictions on partnering with institutes of higher education, nonprofit organizations, industry experts, etc., to fulfill the grant's requirements? So there's going to be one grantee awarded this grant. However, there are no limitations on who that grantee can partner with to fulfill the grant's requirements. There are a few places you'll note in the program guidelines that speak to this. In the general allowable activities and use of funds, they talk about professional and contracted services are allowable. Also in the assurances, there's an assurance about any personnel, agency, or organization subcontracted by the applicant must have the appropriate license and credential skills. So both of those two speak to the fact that the grantee awarded the SPED specialized support grant may partner or subcontract with other entities to fulfill. And that should probably be put in your application. If you have some gaps internally and you would have to subcontract, write that down. Let us know. Put that in your plan. Whew, legal framework, finally, someone else.
All right. So I had just a few questions. Is this a standalone grant? Yes, the legal framework is a standalone grant. And will it be under some other grant manager? Although I am the current grant managers are subject to change at any time. So using the rubric provided, should descriptions of the personnel, experience, etc., be specific to the framework, or should it be all encompassing? Well, descriptions of personnel for this grant should be specific to the legal framework, and please provide any information concerning personnel you feel is relevant to the project. And the next question is, what if we only want to apply for the legal framework? How would we proceed? To apply for the legal framework grant, go to the TEA grant opportunities page, select the 2024-25 legal framework, and find the section application and support information.
All right, that does it for us. I told you there weren't many questions received, but hopefully this has gotten you all to think a little bit. You may have some additional questions after hearing this. And once again, I'd like to reiterate that we will take all of these questions, plus the questions in chat, plus the additional ones we've received through that SPED email inbox through September 15th, and put it all in a FAQ, 3 different FAQs, 1 for each grant, and post it by September 22nd on the TEA Grants Opportunities webpage.
Thank you, Kim and Mandy and Susan, for all the information, and any questions that come today, I will get them sent to you 3 this afternoon. So I want to thank everybody for their time and lots of information. And then this recording, as well as any other information, will be posted to the website hopefully in the next couple days. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.